Right, so good evening. Welcome to our discipleship education teaching classes. We have finished Doctrine of God. We covered Trinity. We covered Father, Son, and Holy Spirit separately, individual persons. And from today, we start Doctrine of Man, anthropology in humanities, but this is biblical humanity. Okay. Doctrine of Man. Today what we are going to do is we are going to watch a couple of videos, okay, a series of videos, which will be creation stories of from around the world. Okay, so we watch each of these videos, and what we want to see is what do the different cultures tell us about how the world was created, how gods are created, how mankind is created. Okay, and then we want to compare it to what the Bible teaches. I didn't want to just go to the Bible and start with Genesis and so on. So let's do a comparison of creation stories from around the world. Right? So what you need to look out for is what was there in the beginning according to all these cultures. Now, if you got a pen and paper, you can note these things down. What was there in the beginning? How are the chief gods of these cultures created or formed? And then how are the lesser gods created or formed? So for the chief god of each of these culture, you use capital G, small g for all the smaller gods that are created. You can ask questions like, how was all the creatures created? Particularly, how was man created? And very importantly, why was man created according to all these stories from different cultures? Okay, so if you are ready, we shall begin. So the first story of creation is from the Egyptians. Let's see what they teach. Let me make this slightly bigger.
Nu was the name of the dark, swirling chaos before the beginning of time. Out of these waters rose Atum. He created himself using his thoughts and the sheer force of his will. He created a hill, for there was nowhere he could stand. Atum was alone in the world. He was neither male nor female, and he had one all-seeing eye that could roam the universe. He joined with his shadow to produce a son and a daughter. Atum gave birth to his son by spitting him out. He named him Shu and made him god of the air. Atum vomited out his daughter. He named her Tefnut and made her the goddess of mist and moisture. Shu and Tefnut were given the task of separating the chaos into principles of law, order, and stability. The chaos was divided into light and dark and set into place. This order was called Ma'at, which formed the principles of life for all time. Ma'at was a feather. It was light and pure. Shu and Tefnut produced Jeb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. At first, these two were tangled together as one. Shu, god of the air, pushed Nut up into the heavens. There she would remain, arched out over Jeb, her mate. They longed to be together, but in the name of Ma'at, they had to be apart to fulfill their functions. Nut produced rain for Jeb, and Jeb made things grow on earth. As the sky, she gave birth to the sun every night before dawn, and by day it would follow its course over the earth and die at sunset. Shu and Tefnut produced the other gods. Isis, the queen of the gods. Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty. Osiris, the god of wisdom and justice. Seth, the god of evil. Thoth, the god of wisdom. And Nephthys, the protectress of the dead. But the chaos was still vast and not yet fully separated into the order of Ma'at. Shu and Tefnut once got lost in the dark waters of Nu. Atum was desperate to find his children. He sent his all-seeing eye throughout the heavens and earth to search for them. In time, Shu and Tefnut returned with the eyes. When Atum saw them again, he was so delighted that he wept tears of joy. As these tears hit the earth, they became the first men. As the men populated the earth, they had to uphold the truth and balance of math. They had the task of tending the earth and worshipping the gods. The gods, in turn, protected and loved their creations.
So that's the story of creation from the Egyptians. So what was in the beginning? In the beginning was not God. In the beginning was darkness, chaos. And then the chief God, the first God, created himself out of his sheer will and thought. Okay, so so there's the darkness in the beginning. So before God, there's this darkness, chaos, and then the first God, he created himself, and then this God, he vomited, he spit out his first two children. Okay, and these first two children then form other gods: the sky god, the earth god, and the sky god and the earth god. The earth god pushed the sky god away, and then that's how you get the sky, the earth, and so on. And the sky god rains down on earth, and flowers and such things grow. So let's do another one. So the cosmos are created by the different gods that are created. So you have one god created two gods, and the two gods create all other gods, kind of thing. Okay. And interestingly, even the god of evil is created. Maybe that's how the answer, why is there evil? Because there's a god of evil. And two of the first two children that the big god created, they kind of got lost. And this main god, he sends out his eye to search for them. When they return, he's so happy, tears of joy fall. And so out of the tears that the big god drops, man is formed. Okay, and then man is supposed to uphold something called the mat. Mat is the order of creation, order of things, like the laws and so forth. And so man is supposed to also worship the gods, and in return the gods look after man and love man and so on. So that is Egyptian story. Okay, you compare that to the biblical creation story, which we will do later. Now we go to the Babylonian creation story.
Before anything had a name, before there was firm ground, or sky, or the sun and moon, there was Apsu, the sweet water sea, and Tiamat, the salt water sea. When these two seas mingled, they created the gods Lamu and Lahamu, who rose from the silt at the edge of the water. When Lamu and Lahamu joined, they created the great gods Anshar, Kishar, and Anu. From this generation of gods, there arose mighty Ea and his many brothers. Ea and his brothers were restless. They surged over the waters day and night. Neither Apsu nor Tiamat could get any rest. They tried to plead with the gods to tread softly, but powerful Ea didn't hear them. Apsu decided the only way to have some peace was to destroy Ea and his brothers. He began to plot their demise with some of the first generation gods. But Ea heard of their plans and struck him down first. This began a war among the gods. Tiamat was furious that her mate was killed, and she began producing great and ferocious monsters to slay Ea and his brothers. She created poisonous dragons and demons and serpents. She created the viper, the sphinx, the lion, the mad dog, and scorpion man. The chief of them all was called Kingu. He led the army of Tiamat's monsters into heaven against Ea and his brothers to avenge Apsu's death. While Tiamat fashioned her army, Ea and the goddess Damkina created the great god Marduk. His eyes flashed with lightning, and when he spoke, he breathed fire. He was fearless and radiant. The gods cowered before him. "You are the great sun," they cried. Ea and the gods told him of the advancing army. They needed his help to defeat them. "I will fight for you, but after the war is over, I shall rule the universe on high." The gods agreed. Marduk made ready for battle. He gathered the four winds to clear the path to Tiamat. Marduk burst out of the sky in his flaming chariot, pulled by his team Killer, Crusher, Unyielder, and Fleet. He held the royal scepter and ring covered in golden armor. He rode into battle bearing his bow and arrows and a mighty thunderbolt. Marduk was glorious to behold. He struck fear in the hearts of all Tiamat's brood. The sea waters of Tiamat swirled together and formed a vast and fearsome dragon. She opened her mouth wide to scream. Before she could utter a word, Marduk cast a hurricane into her mouth. She swallowed it, and the hurricane almost burst her apart from the inside. Before she could cast a single spell, Marduk let one of his arrows fly. It cut her neatly in half. Tiamat's monsters trembled as she died. Marduk raised half of her body to the heavens to form the sky, and the other half formed the earth. Marduk was victorious, and now the undisputed king of the universe. No one ever questioned his rule. He created the days of the year, the planets and their paths in the heavens, the stars and their constellations, and the moon and her moods. He became the sun and gave all the gods their responsibilities. After a time, he decided to create a creature that could serve the gods and bear the burden of hard work looking after the earth. Marduk first created a structure from bone, left over from the bones of the dead monsters from the war. Then he formed the flesh around it and breathed life into it. Man was given his name. He took up residence on the earth, while the gods ascended to heaven. Thus the gods were freed from eternal labor.
So that's the Babylonian story. So in the Babylonian story, in the beginning is sweet and salt waters, two kinds of waters. Remember, Egyptian was darkness, but here is sweet and salt waters. And the god is the two gods are created when the two waters merge together, the two gods are formed. And the two gods form other gods, which they call it first generation gods. Then after, from the first generation god comes this guy called Ea and his brothers. And they are so troublesome, very noisy, mischievous, that the first generation gods want to get rid of them. And so there is a kind of war between the first generation gods and this Ea and his brothers. And so the first generation gods, they create all kinds of monsters to aid them, whereas Ea and his brothers create another god called Marduk. And this god will eventually become more powerful than the other gods. And he kills the dragon that is created, cutting it into two, and half of that body becomes the heavens and the other half becomes the earth, right? And so then he becomes the chief god kind of thing. And how is man created? Man is created because the gods are supposed to do the work, but they want the man to do the work. So labor. So man is created as labor for the gods, and that's how mankind comes about. Now they don't talk about, at least in this story, they don't talk about how the creatures, the animals come about, only mankind. Okay, so again, you can compare this to what the Bible teaches, right? Next, Hinduism. Hinduism is very different from the rest, so be prepared.
Most religions have a single creation story. Hinduism has many. This is because for Hindus there is no single creation, but periodic cycles of creation. The universe we live in is one of innumerable universes. The story of our universe begins with a vast ocean. A serpent, Anantashesh, floats on its surface. Vishnu is asleep in its coils. A lotus sprouts from his navel. On top sits the four-headed demigod Brahma. At first, Brahma can't tell who he is or what he should do. Vishnu encourages Brahma to create the world from the materials he has provided. After eons of meditation, Brahma hears a sound arising from the depths of the ocean, a humming that increases in volume, the sacred Om. Brahma splits the lotus into three parts. One becomes the heavens, another the sky, the third the earth. He creates grass, flowers, trees, birds, fish, and other animals. The world fills with living, breathing things. Regularly, within the cycles of creation, Brahma wants to produce more species or to increase the population of the universe. One time he produced two forms, a male and female, and they combined to give birth to sons. Another time he divided in two, becoming male and female. The female part became a cow, and the male part a bull. They give birth to calves. Then she became a mare, and he became a horse. They have foals. And so the process continued to expand the living world.
So Hinduism is very interesting. Unlike other religions and so on, they don't talk about one universe, but they talk about creation continuously happening. So our universe is only one. There are many other universes. Okay. So when they talk about gods and so on, it's talking about the gods of our universe. And then there are other universe, there'll be other gods and so forth. So there's no beginning to everything because it just keeps on reoccurring over and over. But even then, there should be logically a beginning, but never mind. So in Hinduism, the beginning is not water, it's not sky or darkness or whatever. It's always been there. So before this universe, there were other beginnings of other universe. Because there's so many universes and so on, then which is the chief god? We can only talk about the chief god of our universe, but what about the others? Don't know. So don't know. And because Hinduism comprised of many different castes, many different peoples, so there are too many stories about creation. So which one to believe and which one to accept is mind-boggling. Anyway, in our creation, Vishnu is here, and out of his belly comes out lotus, and Brahma is there, and there are three main gods: Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. There are three of them. Like the Christian Trinity, these are the Trinity. One is the creator, one is the preserver, one is the destroyer. And so these three are the ones for our world, and Brahma creates everything. They say that he takes the lotus petal and then creates the heavens, the sky, and the earth, and they form animals and so on initially, right? And because they want to increase the population of the universe, they create other beings to populate the world. And the gods took on a form of a male and a female, and out of this male and female comes different animals, male and female. But then there were already animals created before, according to this story. Okay, so there's a bit of confusion even to myself. Like I said, there are many versions. So which version you want to take? Not only for Hinduism, but it's also true for Babylonian stories, Egyptian stories, and so on. There be maybe different versions. So which version? I only show you one version that I could have taken any other version, I guess. Okay, so anyway, so in Hinduism, mankind is created from the gods. So we are actually part of God, and that's why in Hinduism, everyone is a god. In fact, everything is a god. Okay, Hinduism is not just polytheism, which is many gods, but it's pantheism, which is everything is God. Okay, everything is part of this God, eternal God, and everything will go back to when we die. We go back to this God kind of concept. Okay, even that also Nirvana has got different versions. So okay, leave it at that. Chinese. So you guys must be familiar with Chinese, right? Okay, let's listen to the Chinese creation.
Let it be told of a time when there was nothing but chaos, and that chaos was like a mist and full of emptiness. Suddenly into the midst of this mist came a great colourful light, and from this light all things that exist came to be. The mist shook and separated. That which was light rose up to form heaven, and that which was heavy sank, became solid and formed the earth. Now from heaven and earth came forth strong forces, and these two forces combined to produce yin and yang. Picture this yang like a dragon, hot, fiery male full of energy. Imagine this yin as a cloud, moist, cool, female drifting slowly. Each of these forces is full of great power. Left alone they would destroy the world with their might, and chaos would return. Together they balance each other and keep the world in harmony. This then is yin and yang, and from them came forth everything. The sun is of yang and the moon yin. The 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer and autumn, and the 5 elements, water, earth, metal, fire and wood, sprang from them. So did all kinds of living creatures. So there was the earth, floating like a jellyfish in water, but the earth was just a ball without features. Then the forces of yin and yang created the giant figure Pan-Ku, the ancient one. Pan-Ku, who never stopped growing every year of his great long life, set to work to put the earth in order. He dug the river valleys and piled up the mountains. Over many thousands of years he shaped and created the flow and folds of our earth. But such work took its toll. Even mighty Pan-Ku could not escape death, and worn out by his struggle he collapsed and died. His body was so vast that when he fell to the ground, his body became the 5 sacred mountains, his hair the plants and his blood the rivers. From his sweat came the rain, and from the parasites living on his body came forth human beings. The people at first lived in caves, but soon heavenly emperors came to teach them how to make tools and houses. The people also learned how to build boats, to fish, to plough and plant, and to prepare food. This is how it all began.
Right, so this is one story of Chinese creation. I think China, like India, is a big country, and they got many different types of people, tribes and so on, and dialects. So I'm sure they got each has its own variation of creation stories and so on. So anyway, this is one of them. According to this story, we are formed from the parasite of Pangu. Okay, but anyway, the big force behind is Yin and Yang. Now I didn't create anything because this particular video doesn't have any text and so on. So I didn't create like for the rest of them. Okay, so now Old Testament story, you should be familiar, but just for consistency, let me play this. Oops, sorry.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was a formless void, and the heavens and the earth were in darkness. Then God said, "Let there be light." Light streamed in, warming the earth and the heavens. God saw that this light was good. God separated light from darkness, and called the light day, and the dark night. And there was evening, and there was morning, which separated the day from the night. Thus night came over the first day. On the morning of the second day, God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the waters." The dome stretched above all waters and formed the sky. Night fell on the second day. The next day, God said, "Let the waters be gathered together, and let dry land appear." And so it was. God called the dry land earth, and the waters seas, and saw that it was good. Let the earth bear fruit, said God, and immediately plants and trees of all kinds filled the earth. The earth became rich and green. God saw that this was good, and night fell on the third day. On the fourth day, God said, Let there be lights in the heavens to separate night from day, the days into weeks, and seasons into years. God created 2 lights, a greater and a lesser, and set them in the sky to be the sun and the moon. He also created the stars, and set them above with the moon. The sun rose on the 5th day, and God said, Let the earth bring forth living creatures, in the air and the seas, and on dry land. Creatures of all shapes and sizes began to fill the earth, and God blessed them by saying, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters in the skies and the land. God saw that this was good, and night fell on the 5th day. On the morning of the 6th day, God created man in his image, and called him Adam. From one of Adam's ribs, he created the first woman. She was called Eve, and was given to Adam to be his mate. God said to his creation, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth with your offspring, and rule over the land and all of its creatures. Every plant that bears fruit, and every creature on this earth is for you. And God saw that all of this was good. On the evening of the 6th day, God had finished with the creation of the earth. On the 7th day, God rested after all the work he had done. He blessed this day and called on all of his creations to rest on the 7th day of every week. The earth he created was a paradise where Adam and Eve and all God's creatures lived in perfect harmony. This was the Garden of Eden. In the center of the garden, God planted a large apple tree. He said to Adam and Eve, All of what you see is yours, but I forbid you to eat the fruits of this apple tree. Promise me that you will never touch them. Adam and Eve promised quickly and didn't think about it again. Until one day, when Eve was alone, a snake came to her and spoke. Why don't you eat one of those apples? He said in a low voice. Certainly not. We have made a promise to God not to touch that fruit, said she. But surely you realize that those apples give whomever eats them great wisdom and knowledge. Surely God would want his creations to have this. The snake went on and on until Eve could no longer resist. She ate a bite of one of the apples and gave one to Adam, who also ate. Suddenly Adam and Eve possessed great wisdom and knowledge, just as the snake said they would. They immediately realized that they were naked. This made them ashamed, and they quickly covered themselves with leaves. God came to them later that day. He noticed that they were no longer naked. You have eaten the fruit I forbade you to eat. It was Eve. She gave me the fruit to eat. It was the snake. He tempted me so I couldn't resist. God was furious. He sent them out of the Garden of Eden forever and cursed them as they were leaving. Adam, because you allowed yourself to be tempted by Eve, you and all the men after you shall be punished by having to toil and suffer to live. The earth will yield her fruits to you only by hard and painful work. Eve, because you allowed yourself to be tempted by the snake, you and all the women after you shall be punished by having to bear children in great pain, and you shall be the servant of your man. Snake, because of your wicked act, you shall be punished by having to spend your life on your belly. You and all of your offspring shall be hated by man. And so Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden forever. Thus their lives were hardly, but they were wiser than all other animals to this day because of the apple they ate.
What can I say? It is not apple. Okay, it's not apple they ate. I don't know. Maybe it was apple, maybe not. But The popular version is apple. And the ending is interesting. It says they became wiser than all the animals because they ate the apple. Sounds like as if it was a good thing that they ate apple. It was not, it was a curse. But anyway, so from the Bible story, in the beginning, is God is in the beginning. Okay, there's nothing but God. So unlike other creation stories, God is not part of creation. He was before creation. And this God is eternal. He didn't think of himself and create himself. It's not the merging of waters or light or whatever. He is eternal. He is the beginning. And God didn't create smaller gods and so on. When we talk about Jesus Christ, we have already studied this. Jesus is called the Son of God, but not in the sense that God gave birth to a son or created a son. Okay, Jesus is himself God. So when we say Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we don't mean that God the Father is the chief God and Jesus and the Spirit are smaller gods. That's not what we mean, right? Trinity, three persons in one God. How was everything else created? The earth and the sky, the cosmos, the creatures, everything was spoken into being. God doesn't have to do anything. He just speaks and it comes to pass. But when it came to mankind, God could have spoken, let there be man, let there be woman, but no. He took time to create man and woman, and he breathed his own spirit in man. Okay, there's a purpose because God created man and woman is the last thing that he creates, but the last shall be first. He created them last because he wants to prepare the world for them. If he created them first, where will they stand on? What will they eat? What will they drink? So he has to create everything, and man and woman is the climax of God's creation. And God has a special relationship with mankind, not the same as other animals. Okay, right. So we watch creation stories from different cultures. There are many others. You can go on the net and search these things. So that there may be different versions and so on, but never mind, we just go to some. The point that I want to make is this. In all creation stories, God is not the beginning. There's something. And then the chief God is created, or he creates himself. Compared to the God of the Bible is eternal. While many other religions have many other gods, because you need God for the sky, to control the sky, one God to do this, one God to do that, and you got different gods taking care of different things. The God of the Bible, he doesn't need all these things. He can control everything himself. And God creates everything by spoken word, and man intentionally. In the Bible, before God created man, God said, let us make man in our image, in the image of God. Let us make him male and female. Let us make him, and let us give him power over everything else, all of creation. So even before God created mankind, he thought through what is he creating, why is he creating, and so on. Unlike some of the other stories, the tears of gods became man, or the gods, they don't want to do the work, so they created mankind to do their work and so on. So it's a totally different story. Okay. Now when the creation story of the Hindus is quite interesting, because they talk about the universe is eternal and there are many, many universes. We talked about creation story from many different religious cultures, but there is also creation story from non-religious culture. I'm talking about Darwinian evolution. Okay, the scientific, so-called scientific, and they are actually atheistic scientists. Okay, they are theistic scientists. So it's not all scientists believe in evolution. So anyway, the atheistic scientists following Darwin's creation story, they have a different, they also have a story how everything was created without a God, right? So but I didn't put that here. When we talk about creation evolution, which I hope to do when we can meet in church, I'll deal with those kind of stuff. Now, the interesting about evolution, because over time, those who believe in Darwinian evolution, they find it very difficult to sustain the stories of Darwinian evolution. Too many questions unanswered. So today they look for new ways of trying to tell how everything came about without God. And part of it is talking the front line. They're talking about all this multiverse and all string theory and all these things. But actually, this is nothing new. You look at Hinduism, it already tells you multiverse and so on. So I think some of them may have heard Hindu stories and then just take it and make it into science. It's nothing new. Okay, now I'll play a video. This is a teacher, an American teacher, science teacher, a Baptist Christian. After some time, he got frustrated with the US because the US, they don't allow teaching of creation. They only have evolution taught. And unlike Singapore and so on, they teach evolution as science. It is science like that. And so in the US, everybody grows up growing up with this idea that creation by evolution is scientific. Okay, so this science teacher gave up, and he goes around talking to different people, debating with them about creation, evolution stuff. Okay, so this is a snippet from a debate he had with three other professors. Three professors in the university against one guy. So he's very bold. He will go and talk to, I don't care how many of you come, I'll talk to all of you kind of thing. Okay, so let's watch this video. The question being asked is, where did God come from? A very good answer. You should listen, pay attention.
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from.
Oops, where's the video? Okay.
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from. And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter, and a pen is made of material matter, and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen? I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right, you may take the rest of the minutes.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was part of the format for the debate. So which question?
I want you to fill in the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay, so 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant, because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it? If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it? You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven there's space, and the earth, there's matter. So you have time, space, matter, created a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them. If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that formed by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God, and that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter. If I could fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping, that's for certain. So that's the God that I worship. Thank you.
Right. So that is an awesome answer to a question, where did God come from? So if you think of created gods, you can ask this question. But God is not created. He exists eternally. Okay. We compare the creation stories between all these different cultures. Other creation stories have gods, the main god, and lesser gods being created. They have gods who are fighting with each other. Okay, one generation of God fighting the other, and so on. They have gods even killing each other. Okay, strange creatures and monsters is part of their creation stories. The earth, the sky, and mankind are created in illogical ways, strange ways. The biblical account is detailed, is logical, and is sensible. Genesis 1 gives an overview of the purpose of man's creation. Genesis 2 tells the details of how that man and woman is created. Okay, so it's more detailed. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the evolution creation argument, some people will point out that the Bible creation story is illogical. One of the reasons why it's illogical is because the sun and the moon are created on the 4th day. Okay, so how can it say there is light before the sun and the moon? Or if the vegetation is created and the sun is created on the 4th day, then how can the plants grow and so forth? Now, all these questions are actually quite simple to answer, so I'll deal with them when we talk about creation evolution debate. Okay, right now I'm not going to go to that. Okay, we talked about the comparison of the creation stories. Now, compare God, capital G right now is the God of the Bible, versus gods, small g, for all other gods. Okay, so different from just now the story, capital G is chief god of whatever religion. But here, when I say capital G, mean God of the Bible, small g for every other gods that are created. Okay, when I do this comparison, I don't mean to condemn other religions or whatever. That's not the purpose. It's just for comparative study. Okay. Now, the God of the Bible is uncreated. He's eternal. The gods of all other faiths are created. The God of the Bible is holy. Holy means he's set apart. He's different, unlike any of his creatures. He's not part of creation. He's separated. But the gods of every other faith is just like men. They will marry, they'll have children. They are just part of creation. Maybe a more advanced form of mankind or whatever you want to call it. But they are just like that. Holy is also morally pure. God doesn't do that which is evil and so forth. But the gods of other faiths, they can cheat their wife, they can marry many wives, they can lie, they can do a lot of stuff. The God of the Bible, while they are three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but the three of them never fight with each other, neither do they make decisions that contradict. They are Trinity. They are Trinity meaning they are in unity, three persons and yet united. That's the God that we worship. Three persons but completely united. When we studied Trinity, I did explain that. But the gods of other faiths, you'll find one god fighting against other god, or sometimes the gods created later become more superior than the gods, the original gods, and so on. And in some cultures, even man can be elevated until the gods fear man and so forth. Now, the relationship between God of the Bible and man is, yes, he is creator, we are creatures. But more than that, the God of the Bible, he relates with us as a father to his children. That is the main thing that he wants in terms of relationship with mankind. He's not looking for servants. He's not looking for people who will bow down to him. We do bow down and worship him, but his main relationship with us is as a father to children. The gods of every other faith is, I'm the master, I'm the creator, I'm the master, you need to bow down to me, you need to serve me, and so forth. So it's more of a boss, creator, creature kind of relationship. For the God of the Bible, he relates with mankind in grace. We don't deserve the things that he gives us, especially since we disobey God, not only in Adam and Eve, but even in our personal life. Many times we do not do what God wants. Even as Christians, we still have rebellious spirit in us. But God is always gracious to us. But the gods of every other faith relates with mankind according to his works. If you're good, I will bless you. If you're not good, I'm going to punish you, kind of thing. So there's always a tension how to please this God in every faith. The God of the Bible, when he created us, as I said, he thought through what is he creating, why is he creating, and so God has good plans for mankind. When he created us, it was with purpose and so on, that man might rule over every other thing and be his child and so forth. The gods of other faiths, when they create mankind, they may not be a definite purpose. They created accidentally or created to take over the God's work, or whatever other reasons are. Okay. The God of the Bible creates man in his image. Man is created in the image of God. But in every other faith, man creates gods in his image. It's a reversal.